this segment is about, can Ozempic, which is the GLP-1 agonist, and all of the GLP-1 agonists, can they save your life? And I use Ozempic because that's the one that's the brand name for semaglutide, and everyone recognizes that one. But there are other ones out there like the Wegovy and tirzepatide and all of these different ones.
Yeah.
And you know these things have exploded, right? I mean, I don't know. Do y'all's friends talk about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have two people that I know that are
We
on
never know because like some people talk about it with me because I'm in the biz or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of people may not talk about it. But I tried to pull up some data, and then this is hard to know because there's so many people on the compounded versions of these, so that's a lot harder to track. But they're estimating that over 40 million Americans are currently using GLP-1 agonists. That's huge for both diabetes and weight loss. And so that would include things like Ozempic and semaglutide, Mounjaro, Wegovy, all of those. And so we've talked about these in the past, but if you haven't seen those segments, I'll kind of just give you the quick recap. So how these drugs work, like for diabetes, it increases insulin release, which brings down your glucose, and also decreases glucagon release, which makes your blood sugar go up. So it acts in that way. And for weight loss, what it does is they slow gastric emptying, meaning your stomach doesn't empty as quick, so you feel full quicker. And they also directly stimulate the receptors that make you feel full, because there's receptors for that. And there are different versions of it. So some of them work, in other mechanisms, but those are like the main gist of it if you aren't familiar with these GLP-1 agonists. And so, with all these people taking it, I'm on social media all the time, just kind of looking around for stories and what's happening. You see a lot of people that are, maybe nervous that so many people are taking this drug that, 5 years ago no one had ever heard of, for the most part. And they're like, oh, what are the possible downsides? And really, there hasn't been a lot, really, if any. I mean, nothing like serious, and like, up to this point, it seems that these drugs are very, very safe. And so, people, that are asking, are there downsides? People are also asking, okay, so what are the upsides of this? And there's been some research papers come out about this, and we haven't really dived into those, so this is a great time to do it. But the reason I brought this up today is there was a study that was just released this past week that has some pretty insane results. And Travis, throw up that first clip. So this is a study. Came out like last week, I think, from the Journal of Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism. And so if you want to look up the study, that's the title. You can just throw it into Google, but I'll kind of break it down for you. So this study is not the absolute best type of study. I mean, are you guys familiar with statistics at all? You probably are with with your health background.
A little bit, but
yeah.
not
Okay.
too
So
much.
like the best would be a double-blind randomized study.
Yes.
Like that's the gold standard. So this is an observational cohort study, which basically that just means is they're taking data and they're trying to break people into groups based on propensity matching. So instead of just like taking two groups and cutting them in half and seeing what one does versus the other, they try to match them so they're the same, right? Because you don't want one group to be a different than the other group, and then the data is not as good. So the thing about this study, though, is even though it's not like the best method, it is a very large study. It looked at over 3.8 million patients that had both obesity but did not have diabetes. And they propensity matched them as close as they could, and they ended up with two groups that each had like between 12 and 13,000 people. Okay. So that's a pretty big study. And then they compared outcomes. And of course, one study were people that were taking the GLP-1 agonists like Ozempic, semaglutide, or whatever, and the other weren't taking it. And the crazy part is there was a huge, huge difference in the two groups. And so kind of the take home was that the GLP-1 agonist group had a dramatic decreased risk of all-cause mortality. And it was pretty dramatic. It had a hazard ratio of 0.23. So what that means in statistical, or in simple statistical terms, is the group that was taking Ozempic had a 77% decreased risk of dying.
Okay.
I mean, that's pretty big. Like that's a really big difference. The group that took GLP-1 agonists also had decreased risk of ischemic heart disease, heart failure, arrhythmias, hypertension, stroke, atrial fibrillation, and kidney disease. And of course, you're kind of talking about the same thing, right? Because if you have a decreased risk of those, then your risk of mortality is going to go down.
Right.
And so, these results are, in my opinion, pretty amazing. And but there also are kind of in line with some other studies that came out. And there's a few out there, but I pulled another one. I throw that one up there, Charles, if people want to look at this one. This is from June of last year, looking at mortality rates for people with type 2 diabetes that were taking insulin that were on GLP-1 agonists. So a slightly different group, but similar. And in this group, all-cause mortality relative risk was 0.49, which basically means a 51% decrease in risk of death.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like I said, it's not a randomized double-blind study, so it's not like the absolute best, and people are already like kind of pointing that out. And the other thing that's kind of not questionable but interesting is how much different this study was than some of the other ones, which there were some studies out there that showed like 20% decrease of death, 50%, and this one's like 77%. And it always raises some questions of, okay, well, is this because this one is so much better or different, is there a problem with the study?
Yeah.
But I think the take home is that it's just another study that shows that GLP-1 agonists are actually really, really good for your health if you fall into one of those criteria, meaning obesity, diabetes, so I don't know. It's interesting to see how this has kind of evolved since these things came out. And, you wonder if you're going to start seeing more and more people get on these things, because it sounds like that there's just so many benefits from it.
Yeah. I've heard that it's how many people are getting on it now is making a shortage for people that need it for diabetic reasons.
That's been a thing forever, honestly. And so there is a answer to that problem, and that is the compounding. When drugs are in a shortage like that, even if they're still on the patent or whatever, if they're on a shortage, then and I don't know the exact law because I'm not a lawyer, but it's my understanding that when drugs are on a shortage like that, pharmacies can legally compound their own to meet the demand. And that's what's happening. And we're doing semaglutide in our office. If somebody wants semaglutide, they can come to my office, and I do a consult with them and talk about the pros and cons, and then our compounding pharmacy, we write the prescription and the compounding pharmacy sends it to them. Yeah. I'm not even sure exactly how many patients we have on it now, but it's not an insignificant number.
Yeah.
And once again, everyone seems to like it. I talk to people and I see them when they come back through, and it's like, okay, tell me the downsides, and they're like, well, and this is, they always say, well, it's exactly what you said. And what I tell them is the biggest downsides are changes to your, your bowel habits. You might get some constipation, you might get some diarrhea, as you kind of get used to these drugs, and definitely, you'll feel full quicker, which is, what the drug does. Yeah. But everyone's like, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
They're not it's not like it's, causing harm to their life. So, as of now, I haven't seen any serious adverse effects from it.
Yeah, all in all, pretty positive.
It has been pretty positive, which is, it's kind of rare that a drug hits the scene like this and makes a huge impact, yet it doesn't seem to have any downsides. And, you always wonder, is something going to pop up? Mm-hmm. But now people have been on these things these are not new drugs. The first GLP-1 agonist came out, in the mid-teens, right? I think 2014, something like that, maybe even earlier. I think that's when they kind of became a little bit more mainstream, and then it just took time before they gained enough traction where now we're talking about them literally all the time.
Yeah.
So, pretty wild stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you think it'd be a good idea to push for more people to be on these? You're in health. What do you think, Sarah?
I think so, just in certain situations where people need that extra positive reinforcement to lose some weight for their health. Because there's some people that are literally killing themselves.
Right, and they just can't do it themselves.
They either don't have the motivation to do it anymore. You know, it's hard to lose weight once you've gotten past a certain point.
Totally, yeah, it absolutely is. Sometimes too, I've seen this where once people are able to lose a little bit of weight, then they're able to get the rest off themselves.
And I think that's what that drug has the potential to do, is just give people that immediate positive reinforcement that they have been looking for. Because sometimes, I mean, especially with women, you can lose weight. You can lose 5 pounds one week, and then the next week you've gained 3 pounds back.
Yeah.
And it's for men, it's a little different.
Sure.
Their weight doesn't fluctuate as much as women's, but
yeah.
I could see it definitely helping with people's mental.
Right. What do you think, Trey? Should everyone be on Ozempic?
It's funny. I've been seeing a lot of people, either like on social media or people that I know that take it, getting off of it for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of problems, or?
Yeah. There was.
Tell me about it.
There was a girl. I don't know what issue she was having specifically because I didn't watch the video, but there was a girl that posted a video, basically why I got off of Ozempic, and she was saying basically there was something that I guess wasn't like reacting with her body, or it was some kind of like complication that she was having from being on it, or some kind of symptom that she was having from being on it. So she got off of it. I've been seeing a lot more people, like an uptick in people getting off of it.
If you see any of those, send them to me. I'm curious because
I'll go back.
I personally hadn't seen it, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
Now I wish I had watched it so I could see exactly what she said.
If you'd only known we were talking about it today.
What she said, but I've been seeing an uptick of people.
Well, I mean, I will tell you that the people that I've have that are on it, like they do say that there are some changes to their GI or gastrointestinal habits. And, it's possible that people that maybe had very mild issues, so maybe somebody that had like very mild irritable bowel syndrome or, mild gastroparesis, meaning like their stomach doesn't empty great anyway, like the drugs could maybe aggravate it and then it would make the symptoms worse.
Right. Yeah, I could see that.
Sure.
I mean, that could definitely happen. I mean, I definitely, wouldn't say that, everyone needs to take this drug and it's, 100% safe. I mean, I think, when you look at every drug, there's always downsides.
Yeah.
I mean, all the drugs that are out there now that a lot of people take, like, things like blood pressure medication and SSRIs for depression, like they all have downsides.
Yeah. Everybody knows those commercials where they say,
I know. They like say them really fast at the end. It's like, your head may fall off. You may get lupus, paralysis. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then there's like a lady on the screen, like looking all inspirational, like in a field or whatever. And you're like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I'll have to look and Travis and see if I can find some of those. I would suspect it's GI stuff, meaning gastrointestinal changes that maybe it was just too much for them.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like we're going to be talking about these GLP-1 agonists for a while because one, you got these studies coming out that say that they really are very, very beneficial to your health if you fall into certain groups. And then who knows, maybe we'll find that maybe there are downsides that we haven't known about. So.